Hello and welcome to Arizona Outdoors Today. I'm your host, Don Martin. Now with me today is Mohave County Supervisor Gary Watson. Gary, Supervisor District 1. Gary, thank you for coming.
Oh, you bet, Don.
Now, what we're going to talk about today is something that's really a hot spot here in Mohave County. It's about the U.S. Fish and Wildlife's proposal to do some restrictions on watercraft on the north end of Lake Havasu all the way up to the Lock Marsh. You and I went to the meeting last night, and there was over 1,000 people in Havasu packed in that aquatic center, and I got to believe that probably 98% of them were very unhappy.
I think that was probably the hotbed of Congressman Carl Gosar's proposal last night, and he got a standing ovation.
Yeah, and anytime you can get a politician get a standing ovation with over 1,000 people, something is really going on, and he really hit it right on the head. And basically, Congressman Gosar is just livid with what the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service are trying to do on the Havasu National Wildlife Refuge. And basically, from what we've seen, they're wanting to do some restrictions on boating, declaring some areas off limits. And I guess this started last year, right before Memorial Day.
Right before Memorial Day, 2 days before Memorial Day.
And they declared an area no boats, and it was an area that Gosar said, hey, it's been used for decades.
Right.
And the thing is, Fish and Wildlife didn't bother to consult with anybody, and this thing was 2 days before Memorial Day.
Unbelievable. It's been navigable for over 150 years. And they're going to close off 17 miles proposal. The proposal is for 17 miles to restrict it to no wake.
Yeah.
Now, we can understand, certainly in the Lock Marsh, you don't want to get in there and put a wake together, because anything over 2 miles an hour, you're going to get in trouble.
Yeah. Well, that Lock Marsh is 4,000 acres. It's up at the north end.
North end.
And they want to restrict it to with boats no more than 30 horsepower.
30 horsepower.
And, of course, no wake. Now, I've been utilizing the Lock Marsh since the 70s, early 70s. And at no time have I ever tried to put my bass boat that's got a 175 horse engine on it on plane in there. If you did, you would knock the lower unit off.
It'd be somewhat like suicide.
Yeah, and very expensive.
Oh,
So one of the questions that's being posed is, what is the need for this? Does anybody really believe that anybody would go into the Lock Marsh and try to go faster than 5 miles an hour?
It absolutely makes no sense at all. Although we did hear last night from several people that there was a complaint by some paddleboard people. And there evidently were 2 paddleboard people in the area of the marsh that were having a difficult time traversing the area because of wakes of other boats.
Right.
And certainly, we can appreciate people paddleboarding, but paddleboarding in the main thoroughfare of the river doesn't make a lot of sense. Especially
on a weekend.
On a holiday weekend.
Yeah, and what Gosar brought up is, on a holiday weekend, they got 50,000 boaters down there.
Yeah.
And most of them have big boats. And, it brings in 2 to 3 million visitors a year to Havasu. It's a huge economic impact. And I know Supervisor Buster Johnson addressed the Fish and Wildlife Service people, and he made it pretty clear that, this was a big economic deal, and for them to go and try to impose these restrictions was something that he and the rest of the Board of Supervisors are adamantly against.
Oh, adamantly. We actually, yesterday morning, we put together a resolution against it.
Okay.
So we're united against the proposal, and it's just a compounding factor of the federal overreach by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. We go back to the fishery at Willow Beach.
Yeah, the fish hatchery.
We have an ironclad deal to make that productive again, and here we are, the feds dragging their feet.
Yep, here we're a year later, and they're saying, well, maybe December. And, that created such a furor in Mohave County.
Oh, yeah.
And I know Supervisor Angus was leading the charge on that one, and she got Senator McCain involved in it. And, ultimately the Arizona Game and Fish Department threw a lot of money at it. They were supposed to get that thing working, and here it is, like you say, over a year later, still not operational, and they're saying maybe by Christmas. So, and you know, last night when I was talking to Hildy, and she says, you know, we only had about 50 people show up for a public hearing, a public meeting on this issue, and she said tonight, you know, there's over 1,000 people in here. She said, how can the service not listen to the constituency out here?
They have to now.
You know, I mean, you know, they're proposing this compatibility thing, and like I say, it was interesting. Gosar led the charge on this, and I think Senator McCain also got involved in it.
Yes, he did.
And basically what they said was, hey, this is a bad idea. And Gosar said, you need to hold some public meetings. You need to go through the National Environmental Protection Act, NEPA, and you need to get public input. You need to find out what the impacts are from you guys doing this. And they didn't. And they said, well, and then finally they said, okay, in 2015, I think it was July, I wrote them a letter. They responded and said, okay, we'll do it. Well, here it is now, May 2016, and they had their first meeting last night, and Gosar was absolutely livid because they scheduled them initially at the RV Casino in Nevada.
Right.
Now, wait a minute. The Colorado River that is going on
in question
here is between the states of California and Arizona, not Nevada.
Right.
But the Fish and Wildlife Service wants to hold the public input meetings in Nevada.
Well, you know, we saw that same thing happen when the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service was putting together the program for the Mexican wolf. Mm-hmm. And now we have the 10J area that goes all the way from eastern Arizona to Mohave County.
Yeah, and for those that don't know what a 10J, that's experimental, non-essential. That's what that stands for, that 10J thing.
So every time that we've dealt with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, we've been disappointed. And it's a constant overreach by whatever they want to do, and they just don't want to listen to us. And that's why FEMA's there, FLIPMA was there, and that's why the Congress wrote these laws for the cooperation between local governments and the federal government. Mm-hmm. And they're just totally ignoring the local government.
And you as a representative, now, you're in District 1. You have, what, 2/3 of Mohave County, the landmass?
2/3 of Mohave County.
So you got a really big district, and the Colorado River, Topok, that's not even in your district.
No, it's not.
But you're a sportsman, you're a member of the Board of Supervisors, and you're absolutely interested in what's going on down there.
Every time we dealt with these people, they've ignored us, and it's time it gets turned around.
Right.
And now that we have Congressman Gosar has worked diligently the last several years on the
Mm-hmm.
on the trout issue, now this issue, the wolf issue, I would think they're getting to know him pretty well.
Well, they should, and you know, he's a representative just like you are. And you know, what's the input that you're getting from your constituency about all this? I mean, these guys live, you know, you got people live up on the Arizona Strip and everywhere else, but everybody's got an opinion about this. What are the rank and file in Mohave County thinking about this?
The rank and file basically, it's a national phenomenon, and I think everybody's feeling it because we see it in the TV every day in the national polls by people running for the presidency. Everyone's angry at the federal government, and that's because the federal government isn't taking time to listen to local governments and the local constituents. And I think that's why the national fervor is about.
Yeah. Well, you know, it was interesting last night. One of the speakers that we watched address Fish and Wildlife was from the Arizona State Parks. And Arizona and their guy said, listen, we're supposed to be a partner with you on anything that goes on down here, and yet we were not even consulted, asked, or even notified. And I know Mayor Mark Nexon said he found out about this proposal on Facebook.
On Facebook.
He wasn't even contacted by the Fish and Wildlife Service.
Right.
So it's obviously, it's got that huge economic impact. They're talking, you know, millions of dollars.
Oh, millions and millions of dollars.
And you know, so we need to make sure that, you know, that the public knows there is a process and that you can respond. You got till May 12th to respond to this, but we've asked for a 60-day extension. Mm-hmm. And I think Mohave County's asked for it. Every speaker I heard last night was in favor of that 60-day extension to give people the opportunity to weigh in on this. Not only just the business people, the recreation people. I know I heard a bass angler talk about that in a situation last year. They had a major tournament. They had the BASS Elite tournament down on Havasu. A guy by the name of Aaron Martins won that tournament. Well, one of the areas that Aaron Martins fished was proposed to be closed off. And what that bass fisherman said was, if these areas are closed off, guys like Aaron Martins and the Bass Angler Sportsman Society will not come back to Havasu and hold the tournament there. And like I say, the Fish and Wildlife Service, I mean, they didn't bother to ask anybody about this.
You know, not only are we looking at the professional bass folks down there, the recreational issue down there on that river is just humongous. We're looking at 4,000 or 5,000 jobs that are going to be affected. $200 million in revenue generated by tourism in that area.
Wow.
It's just absolutely ridiculous.
Well, we're going to take a break. When we come back, Supervisor Watson and I are going to discuss some more about the proposal on the Havasu National Wildlife Refuge. Don't go away.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Call this free government program for the option that's right for you.
Welcome back to Arizona Outdoors Today. I'm your host, Don Martin, and with me today is Gary Watson. Gary is supervisor for District 1 here in Mohave County. We're talking about the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service's proposed restrictions on the Havasu National Wildlife Refuge, which basically extends all the way into the north end of Lake Havasu and then back to the Lock Marsh. One of the things that I thought was kind of interesting in listening to the whole different group of people that were speaking.
Of the 1,200 people at the meeting?
Yeah, and one guy was saying that the Fish and Wildlife had only gave them 2 hours to talk to him, and they should stay there for as long as anybody wanted to talk to them. That was one of the things he was saying. And then another guy made a comment that I thought was really nice and right on point. He says, "Don't try to fix what isn't broken." And I think that quote goes to Mayor Nexon from Lake Havasu, who, like he said, I heard about this on Facebook. The city manager of Lake Havasu got up and spoke, but it was interesting. He says, "I'm not speaking as the city manager. I'm speaking as a citizen down here." And boy, he was upset about it too.
He did a good job, yeah.
As was just about everybody. There was, in all fairness, there was a lady that commented that they were coming down the river and the boats were going so fast that they had to pull literally into the tulies to keep from getting run over. And that was her complaint. And we know that this whole thing started when the Fish and Wildlife Service received a complaint from 2 paddle boaters.
Right.
And based upon a complaint by 2 people, they decided, the Fish and Wildlife Service and the refuge manager, and I think it's Linda Miller, it was the refuge manager, decided to do that emergency thing before Memorial Day last year, and now they're doing this again. I was looking at my notes about what this could affect, and they were talking about the effects on the local economy. They were talking about the businesses that are absolutely keyed in to the boating and tourism aspect of Havasu, and like you said, that's 4,000 or 5,000 jobs.
Exactly.
So you can't just let those things kind of go away. So like I say, it was a request, and I think a lot of the speakers said, "Hey, work with us cooperatively, and let's work this out. We understand there might be some issues that need to be addressed." They were talking about protection of the birds and the nesting birds. And this was what, to me, was kind of confusing, because when you read this document, they talk about, we need the no wake because we don't need the wake disrupting the nest of these birds. But it doesn't say what these birds are and when this is. Now, most of these birds nest in the spring, and most of the use is summer and fall.
Right.
So a lot of people said, "Listen, I'm confused about all this, and how about we just take a step back, extend the 60-day response period, and let's all get together and work together and try to work out something that, most of the people can live with. You're never going to,
No.
being in government, you can never please everybody.
That's for sure. But one thing that really struck me last night is over 1,200 people at this meeting. That's the largest number of people that we've ever had at a U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service gathering and meeting, whether it had to do with the trout issue at Willow Beach or the wolf issue in eastern Arizona. And I think that we're going to make some real headway. I think we really woke those people up now that we have Congressman Gosar avidly aware of it and working on it. Senator McCain's office was present last night, and I'm sure Senator Flake's office will be informed of it. I think we've got a coalition of some real dedicated people to make sure that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service will start listening to us.
Right.
And understanding that this is also for multiple use.
Yeah. This
That's all we're asking.
This is a local issue.
Yeah.
Right? That affects thousands of people.
Thousands of people.
And I know there was a representative from California. He was representing a congressman from California.
Congressman Cook from
Yeah.
San Bernardino County.
Yep. And he was adamantly against this. So, you just have to wonder, when you look at government people and they see a room full of people like that and they're going to get thousands of comments on this, what the heck do they think?
What were they thinking?
Yeah, what were they thinking to initiate it? And now, what are they going to do about it? Are they going to respond to local governments like Lake Havasu, Bullhead City, Kingman? I understand our mayor in Kingman, Richard Anderson. He was against it. So was Tom Brady in Bullhead City.
Correct.
And that's above the river from where all this is happening. But it's a trickle-down effect on everything.
Exactly.
So, you wonder if, you're in government. You've been in government for a long time.
For a couple of years.
Yeah, a few years. And I should add here, Gary's up for re-election this year. And think about this. This is not even his district he's talking about, but yet he was down there last night and part of the process and said, listen, this is no good. Step back.
Good. Yeah.
A representative of the people. So, I mean, you can take that as an endorsement. Yeah. I've been on a lot of this stuff with Mr. Watson, from the wolf issue to the Grand Canyon Monument, now with this thing, and I can tell you that Mr. Watson fully supports his constituency and is not afraid to speak out and tell the federal people how he feels about when there's an obvious overreach and injustice being done. So you need to get involved. I'm going to give you an address that you can send your comments to. So you might want to write this down. You can send your comments to Havasu_boating_comments at fws.gov, or you can send it to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Havasu National Wildlife Refuge, attention, draft recreational boating CD, 317 Mesquite Avenue, Needles, California, 92363. We need to get involved in this as citizens. Luckily, we've got government people on the county level, from the state level, and
Arizona Game and Fish.
Arizona Game and Fish. I know I just got a thing, and Arizona Game and Fish Commissioner Kurt Davis is livid about this and urged everybody to attend the meetings and write letters. So, Game and Fish, state parks, Mohave County, Lake Havasu City, Bullhead City, Kingman, everybody has all of these concerns. So what you need to do is to make sure that you send your comments in so that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife can absolutely see what is going on and how you feel. So, got anything else we need to tell them?
Can't think of a thing, Don. Thanks a million.
Okay, folks, this is your host, Don Martin, saying keep your fishing line fresh, your firearms oiled, and we'll see you next week at Arizona Outdoors Today.